Disney's Pixar wasn't just animated movies, they were making events. Each release felt special, emotionally powerful, and almost guaranteed to be great. But lately the conversation around Pixar is very, very different. Hello everyone and welcome back to AustinPlus Commentary, where today we are answering a question that personally is somewhat understandable, but you're gonna have to actually continue on with the video to understand what I mean, because the video I'm answering the question is what happened to Disney Pixar. Now, if you're wondering they've put out some films recently, yes they have, they definitely have, but I'm talking about the true prime Disney Pixar, what really happened. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, when Pixar first released at its peak, it was just untouchable. Pixar had almost an unbelievable run. Movies like Toy Story, Finding Nemo, The Incredibles, Up, and WALL-E weren't just successful, they were critically acclaimed, culturally impactful, and emotionally resonant for both kids and adults. These films were driven by strong original ideas, clear creative voices, and a focus on storytelling first. And Pixar wasn't just changing trends, it was setting them. It was the thing that made other people do what they're doing. It was the trend setter. And it was just... I went recently to go and see a Pixar movie, and I am so lost. I'm so disappointed. I did think about leaving the theater. I didn't, but I really think I should have. But it's just... I don't know what's going on. Pixar definitely did decide to go from shifting towards the sequels and familiarity, which I am understanding that can dilute a franchise a lot. And the same thing happened here. Over time, Pixar's output began to change. Sequels became more common and original concepts started to feel safer. While many sequels were still well made, that's for sure, like Toy Story, they often lacked the emotional punch and novelty for earlier films. Instead of asking what story needs to be told, the question increasingly felt like what brand do audiences already recognize. So they went with their top choices like Toy Story, The Incredibles, Finding Nemo. They did that to death. Incredibles 2 was good. They stopped there. They should have. Now, Toy Story, we're nearly in the fifth one. I hope it's the last one. We also had the Buzz Lightyear thing. The sequels just kept on just doing what it just didn't go well. Now, Disney's influence and corporate pressure, I think, is where it all went wrong, in my opinion. Now, after Pixar was fully integrated into Disney, because when it started, Pixar was sort of its own thing until it was bought out by Disney, I do believe. The studio became much more of a part of a larger corporate machine. Release schedules were definitely tightened, expectations grew, and box office performance became even more critical. This pressure doesn't eliminate creativity, but it can shape it. Risk-taking becomes harder when every project has to justify the massive budgets and global marketing campaigns. So Disney Pixar became like an objective for the corporate side rather than something to be enjoyed. And the longer this went on for, the streaming era that came around, and it changed everything. Now, don't get me wrong, corporate pressure, I can understand, can have a very big impact. Now, for moving to the streaming era, which is around about the same time that COVID came around, it definitely just flipped Pixar on its head. Disney Plus dramatically altered how Pixar films were released and perceived. Movies that would have once seemed theatrical like events debuted on streaming and often would have less build-up and just less cultural presence. When films felt disposable, they knew it was dying. Films were watched once and quickly forgotten. Lightyear, perfect example. Toy Story 4, another good example. Yes, it was well received, but it was incredibly diluted when it was released. It's harder for them to leave a lasting impression, even if they are well crafted. So taking all of that into account, because we've had some odd things here and there, but now they're leaning more back towards the sequels. We had Hoppers, which I didn't know, which was Disney Pixar, and it was horrible. And I bet you Toy Story 5 is just going to be another statistic in that matter. But I think a very interesting question is, have films actually gotten worse? Now, this is the very conversation that gets very complicated, because it depends on who you're talking to. Many recent Pixar films are still thoughtful, emotional, and beautifully animated. They'll never take that away from them. The issue isn't necessarily quality, but it's the consistency and impact. Earlier Pixar movies felt universal, they just felt like an era. Like the old Pixar movies were like an era, but some newer films just feel very niche, quieter, and less emotionally explosive. There's a plot point, there's a beginning, middle, and end. That's all there is to it, which can be mistaken for decline rather than evolution. It's just stuck. No, actually, no, it's not stuck. It is evolving, but in the wrong direction. It should be getting better, not worse. Now, Pixar has been around for a long time, so I can understand that dilution can be affected. But it's really hard to understand because they haven't gotten worse. The stories aren't good. That's all. That's what their problem is. The structure's still there. You can still tell it's a Disney Pixar structured and animated film, but the stories are just so bad now. Audiences change. They always do, no matter what franchise it is. Viewers consume more content more than ever now. Attention spans are a lot shorter, and animated films compete with every other form of YouTube to video game to social media, which I think is where their biggest issue lies, because they are still going off the same song sheet, but things have changed that basically bring that competition down. What once felt groundbreaking may now just seem familiar, and you're just another typical YouTube video or a clip on social media. But not because Pixar is worse, but because the industry has just caught up with what Pixar pioneered. Pixar is what started it all. There's no doubt about that. Pixar is what started it. But I think everything's catching up to them, and they don't know how to move forward, which is perfectly understandable. Because once something is very familiar to them, they don't know what to do. Now, Hoppers is a perfect example of that, because Hoppers was a horror. It was... I was watching it and I was like, yeah, this is definitely a Pixar film, but it's so much worse. If you're comparing it to Toy Story 3 or Toy Story 3, Incredibles, as I said, WALL-E, it is the same structure, same kind of characters, the same, like the hero, the sidekick, and then the villain who ends up actually becoming the hero in some aspects. It's just so, this the same song sheet that we all consume, but it's just the same thing over and over again these days. But can we find that Pixar spark again? Pixar have still got immense talent and resources that will, remember, they're run by Disney. They've got the most resources out there. But what they may need most is time, creative freedom, and willingness to take risks without relying on nostalgia or brand safety. The studio doesn't need to recreate its past. It just needs to redefine what a Pixar movie means for a new generation. Now, Hoppers, not a good start. I'll keep on saying that. But I think finding their groove again after Toy Story 5 might actually lead into something. So, what truly did happen to the Disney Pixar movies? Pixar didn't suddenly fail, it just wasn't evolved under pressures in a different media landscape. The magic wasn't lost overnight, it was just diluted by expectations, corporate demands, and changing viewing habits. And the heart is still there, but the question is whether Pixar is willing to let it lead. They didn't disappear, but the conditions that once made them feel special have just changed. Pixar doesn't need to be what it used to be. It just needs the freedom to surprise us again. But without further ado, folks, that is the end of today's video. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and comment what you would like to see on this channel. But I hope you have an amazing day as always, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye. Yeah.